Hey everyone, it's Ton Types, and today we're going to be taking a look at the starter decks, and I'm going to be telling you the best free cards in the standard format right now, and also post-rotation. And if you're a new Pokemon TCG player, specifically to Pokemon TCG Live, and if you haven't played Pokemon TCG Live and might consider getting into it at some point, log into the game now at least once, because you'll get these free decks, and they include some very, very good cards coming with rotation in March or April. I don't know if it's confirmed on Pokemon TCG Live, but it'll come with the release of the expansion Journey Together. I don't know, the one with the trainers Pokemon. And so with that, we'll be losing cards, some of these cards, which we'll talk about, but you'll be losing cards and getting new starter decks. The starter decks, we don't know exactly what they'll look like, but these starter decks are very good, and they have some crucial cards that if you don't have, you're at a serious disadvantage. So there are cards that are very good attackers, like Charizard DX, and there are cards that are literally essentially required in every deck, or at least in most decks. So I'll just go in order here. Charizard DX is the first. Charizard DX with Pidgeot EX is the first deck. Charizard DX is a great attacker here, being able to just, it has good HP damage, its ability is good. I mean, it's a very solid attacker, and it's going to be good post-rotation. Presumably, there's some concern about pairing it against Badoo, a new baby grass Pokemon, but I don't think it's going to be bad, and there are different ways you could adapt, including Team Evolution, which is in this deck. Team Evolution is a pretty interesting card. It's not like a super strong card, but definitely a card that is kind of nice to have. But Charizard DX is a very solid, good attacker post-rotation, and one of the best ones in any of these decks. It actually probably is the best out of any of these decks. Then you have Pidgeot EX. Pidgeot EX is super awesome. Its ability lets you search your deck for any card every single turn. You cannot use more than one Pidgeot EX, but it's a very, very good card. Again, it's a stage 2. You probably won't be playing the Pidgeotto, and in fact, this isn't even the best Pidgey, probably, but regardless, definitely a very good combo of stage 2 EXs, probably the best 2 in the game. Dragapult EX is also good, and I might be forgetting one. I mean, Gardevoir EX is also a very good stage 2 EX. I just want to quickly look at the metagame, and in that we see Charizard Pidgeot is actually the current top deck based on play rates in Play Limitless tournaments, so very good. And then you look at like Hydreigon EX is probably playing Pidgeot EX. Different, like Pidgeot Control is a Pidgeot EX deck, and Trapghost EX is probably playing Pidgeot EX. So it's in a lot of decks, and it's a really good card. One of the best Pokemon here. Radiant Charizard is also a very good card, as well as Manaphy. They're both rotating, but you do have a little time to play them. Manaphy is a card that is a consideration in pretty much any deck in the game, protecting your bench. And with rotation, we won't necessarily have a replacement. At this time, we don't know of a replacement. A great replacement. There is the new, or they're not so new. There is the Thundurus, which can protect your bench, newer than Manaphy, so not rotating, but it needs to be in the active, so that's a pretty big issue. But there isn't really a good. There's Rapska, actually. There's Rapska, the stage 1. I don't believe you get Rapska here. That blanked my mind, but Rapska's okay if it is a stage 1, which is an issue, potentially a massive issue. That'll mean that it's not really playable. I mean, right now people play Manaphy over it, so keep that in mind. But right now, it's a very good card. Radiant Charizard is a good attacker, I guess, within like Charizard DX and some other decks. It's not a standout great card compared to some of the other ones we'll see. Then we'll take a look at the trainers from this deck. We got 4 copies of Arven. Arven is a very good supporter, one of the best supporters in the game right now. There are really 2 categories of supporters. The one is boss orders. You get 3 copies in this list. You won't really ever be needing more than 3 copies, so that's fine. There are occasional decks that play 4. Honestly, most would even play 3. 2 is pretty common. It's a card that lets you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon into the active of your choice. It's called Gusting. That's the effect, the term for the effect generally. And Boss's Orders is the main Gusting card, though there are a bunch of items. There's Counter Catcher, Pokemon Catcher, which doesn't see that much play, but sees some play, and also Prime Catcher, the A spec, which you do not get, but you do not get for free. But that is a good card. But Boss's Orders is the main Gusting card. Probably like half of the Gusting that you see in games is Boss's Orders, and some people like to rely on it more than others. Then you have Arven, which is the other category supporter, as I said. And Boss Orders is essentially like, I believe it's the most played card in the game right now. I'm not sure, but at one point it was. But Arven is a supporter that is like a setup supporter, searching for an item and a tool. It's really good. There are lots of good items. This list plays 4 Buddy Buddy Poffins, 4 Ultra Balls, and 2 copies of Nest Ball, although I do believe you do get 4 for free. And these are staple items that you'll be playing in lots of decks. Every deck will probably be playing... Most decks are playing 4 Nest Ball. If you're playing 4 Buddy Buddy Poffin, so Nest Ball gets any basic from your deck, and it's an item, which is really great. Puts it onto your bench as well, and then, which is bad. You want it into your hand so you could trigger on-play abilities, but it's not that much worse than just playing it from getting it to your hand. Then Buddy Buddy Poffin searches for 2 basics and gets them onto your bench, but they need to be 70 HP or less. So in a deck like this, where you have Charmander and Pidgey, and then you also have Manaphy here, then Buddy Buddy Poffin's almost directly better than Nest Ball. And then you also have Ultra Ball. This can get you the Pokemon to your hand, and it's any Pokemon in Evolution included. You do need to discard 2 cards from your hand, though. But Buddy Buddy Poffin or Nest Ball, you'll be playing probably 4 of one of them. And then Ultra Ball is a pretty common card. Filling out your Pokemon search. In an Evolution-based deck, you'll be playing 4 of it, almost certainly. So these are great cards. And then Arven can get them. And it can get other items as well. The other main item, or another very important item, is Switch, which is it lets you switch your Pokemon from the bench to the active. And you have Super Rod to get back 3 in any combination of Pokemon or basic energy cards you can discard pile into your deck. It's one of the main recovery cards. Realistically, I believe it is the main recovery card used right now, but Night Torch is also a pretty good card, which I don't believe you get for free, unfortunately. And then, so Arven can get any of those items. It can also get tools. The main tool that is played right now is Force Seal Stone, which I don't think you get. It allows you to search any card, but it's a once per game effect. It uses up your VSTAR power, so that's a very good tool. In fact, a big part of why Arven is played, but in this list, there's actually not really like too much reason for Arven. It gets Rare Candy as well, which is the item card necessary to every Stage 2 deck, or essentially every Stage 2 deck in the game, allowing you to skip the Stage 1. Most lists don't play. Like, Pidgeotto is a card you'll almost never see played. Charmeleon is sometimes played. In this list, it plays less Charmeleons than Charizard EX. It's because of Rare Candy. Rare Candy is a card that you have to play Stage 2 decks. Then, those are all the items. These are like the main items in the game. There are some other ones which are certainly good as well. Some decks have situational items that, maybe not situational, but like deck-specific items. These are all, generally usable in almost every deck. But then Team Evolution, I mentioned earlier, Defiance Band it's a fun little tool. It's not like super great. It's okay, increasing your damage by 30, but only if you're down. Definitely not a bad card to have a single copy of, though. Then there are the other supporters. Iono, I believe you get 4 copies of this, and Professor's Research as well. These 4 supporters, I believe, are the main supporters. 4 supporters right now. I might be forgetting one. I mean, there's Professor Sada's Vitality, which might be played more than one of these. It changes over time. But regardless, these are the big 4 supporters. I'd say these are the big 3, but Arven sees a lot of play in Stage 2 decks and decks really reliant on Force Seal Stone, like, for example, Miraidon EX, which you don't get for free. But you have Professor's Research, which is a supporter saying you discard your hand, draw 7 new cards. It's the most draw of any supporter in the game. Then you have Iono, where each player shuffles their hand into their deck, or hand onto the bottom of their deck, and then you shuffle your hand, and then you place that hand on the bottom. You don't. This means that if you play Iono, you're never going to draw the same cards you had in your hand. Unlike supporters that shuffle into the deck, it doesn't really change the card that much, but it is something that is I guess worth noting. But regardless, you do that, and then you draw a card for each player draws a card for their remaining prizes. So it's at the beginning of the game, each player shuffles their hand, draws, and puts on the bottom, draws 6. Near the end of the game, it's shuffle their hand, put it on the bottom, each player, and it'll be drawing just a small amount of cards. So in the early game, it's a really good draw supporter for you. And it's probably not helping your opponent that much. It might help them a little bit, but it's not like insane. And unlike Professor's Research, you don't lose your whole hand to the discard pile when you play it. And then at the end of the game, it reduces each player's hands by a bunch. And so this means that your opponent won't necessarily be able to do what they want to do. So that could be really good. It depends on what like their engine is. If they are like Pheasant EX, Barrel, these types of cards kind of let them draw out their hand later on in the game from small hands. But if they don't have that, you're in a great position. If they do, then, still, it's better to have them have to use that ability and not get value out of it to add extra cards to their hand to make them just get up to a normal hand size. So Iono is a very good supporter that's great in the early game, great in the late game, that does different things in those different parts. And then you have I was just so this is an article by Pokemon, and it's kind of weird, some of the stuff. It's not like that bad. It's certainly decent, but they got some weird titles. And Rain Dance is a different ability, but regardless, then we have Chien-Pao EX and Baxcalibur. You just accelerate lots of energies to Chien-Pao EX using Baxcalibur. They're okay cards. And I mentioned Bibarel as well. Bibarel will be rotating, but lets you draw till your 5 cards in hand. Bibarel doesn't see very much play right now. But excuse me, but it is a very solid draw engine. I'll talk some about, Pidgeot EX is like an engine card, but Bibarel is also one. It's decent, definitely decent in this deck. Chien-Pao is not a great deck right now, and also it's heavily reliant on the support of Irida, which gets you an item and a water Pokemon, which will be rotating from the format, but definitely a decent deck, not a bad one. I think if people say it's bad, they're talking about like it's not top 10, but it's definitely a playable deck that can do some stuff for now. Though with rotation, with the loss of Irida, that's a pretty big deal. Irida is also a very nice versatile supporter, kind of like Arven, not getting a tool, which can be really good in some decks, but the water Pokemon is more valuable than the tool in water decks. Irida is just like really strong in those certain decks. As I said, though, it will be rotating in March or April. And then the deck itself, it's okay. As I said, not bad. And Chien-Pao EX isn't really that versatile, and nor is Baxcalibur. There are some different things you could do with them, but I haven't really seen that too much. They must always play together. Radiant Greninja is a great card. This will be rotating, but it's the best Radiant Pokemon by far. Its ability lets you discard a card from your hand to draw 2 cards. An energy from your hand to draw 2 cards, which is really nice. And its attack is usable in a variety of decks, and it can be paired with Origin Form Palkia VSTAR, paired with Baxcalibur, paired with the Lost Zone deck. So it's a pretty nice, it's a pretty decent attacker that can threaten your opponent's bench. It does 90 to 2 of their Pokemon. Though people often, specifically the people that are going to be most threatened in the decks that will be most threatened by it, like the ones with the low HP basic Pokemon like Charmander or like Pidgey, have Manaphy, so it's not the strongest attacker. It's not bad, but it's not like your main attacker, but it is a nice attacker to have, and its ability is really good in a wide variety of decks. UEX is another pretty versatile Pokemon with its free retreat, which is really nice. It's one of the best free retreat Pokemon in the game. Though with Badoo will probably be better, but that has a lot of stuff to go into. I've talked about that card a lot. If you've seen much about new cards that are coming out soon internationally, you've heard about Badoo, and that card's a big thing. But UEX is a safer EX. It had, or free retreat Pokemon. Badoo is 30 HP. This is 180. It's a 2-prizer, but it's a pretty good Pokemon, usable attack that can be nice in certain scenarios. It has a good ability letting you draw some cards as well. It's just a very solid Pokemon. Then you have Lumineon V. This is a Pokemon V, so it will be rotating. It has an attack that can get it off the board, but on play from your hand, you search your deck for a supporter card, put it into your hand. This is one of those cards, really the main one that cannot be gotten off of Nest Ball to trigger its ability, which is something that hurts it, but it is still a very solid Pokemon, paired with Force Seal Stone as well, which, as I said, I don't think you get, but it's a very strong card. Professor Turtle scenario lets you scoop up a Pokemon. This is a usable supporter, a bit interesting with different scenarios, more so control decks or control counter decks where your opponent tries to get something trapped in the active. This is useful there, or it can be used to heal up. You return it to your hand, so you heal it up completely. Additionally, Superior Energy Retrieval is useful for a few different decks that want to be discarding lots of energy and then getting that back and either discarding it again or getting it onto your board, or different things like that. It's really useful for the Chien-Pao EX Baxcalibur combo. That's literally the reason it was reprinted into the game. It came out in the same expansion, so it's a pretty solid item card that is not bad to have. Lost Vacuum's a pretty good item card. Will be rotating, but it allows you to remove tools or stadiums from play. It also interacts with Lost Zone, which is okay. It helps out the Lost Zone deck some, but ultimately it's just a really good way to, and the best way to remove stadiums and tools. After rotation, you'll be having to use, I believe, Jamming Tower, which is a stadium, and that might not be what you want to do. So Lost Vacuum is a really, really great card, searchable off of Irida and Arven, and I wouldn't say it's the top tier of item because it's not helping you get set up, and it's somewhat situational, but it's a very, very good card, and we'll see what the metagame looks like once it's rotated as well. And then we have Gholdengo EX, another solid attack. You discard a bunch of energy. It draws some stuff. It's a pretty decent Pokemon. It's not actually. I guess it's better than Chien-Pao Excalibur right now. You got Gholdengo it's really highly played. I don't think it's super great, but you do have it with the new Ace Spec card. So you have like all these different types of energy and Energy Search Pro to get all the energy from the deck. And we see the Palkia VSTAR and Radiant Greninja and lots of different things going on in this deck. But it's definitely a pretty decent attacker. We see Pokestop here. I don't know these lists super well. I believe you get Pokestop somewhere. Pokestop's a good stadium, but then you have Glade and Curlier and Ralts. Curlier is a decent draw Pokemon. There's some really weird stuff within the list that the Pokemon TCG Live team gives you for free. This is not a list I'd recommend you play, but you have Curlier, which can let you draw cards, kind of like Barrelet's another engine Pokemon, though you do want a bunch of copies of it in play. And Galade's a cool card. It's not one that sees much play, but I do like it, getting you a supporter every turn. Then we see Surfer Maniac's Code Breaking, an interesting supporter. You can play it in Chien-Pao EX, actually. I haven't really played this one too much, and I don't know exactly what decks play it, but it's definitely an okay supporter. Tulip's not great. Lady's definitely not great. Capture Aroma is like a fun little item, but it's definitely a tier below Ultra Ball and Nest Ball and Buddy Buddy Poffin. It can do some things, kind of like Ultra Ball, though. It's a card that sees play within Lugia VSTAR before that rotates, so that's definitely, it's an okay item to have. Then we have Palpad. Palpad's a really nice item. This is a recovery item, just like Super Odd, recovering up to two supporters from your discard pile into your deck, shuffles them in. And that's pretty good, allowing you to get back certain supporters that you might be wanting, like Boss's Orders, Iono, Professor's Research, or more versatile and unique ones as well. It's just a very solid card that you really do want. Ideally, you'd have like a few copies of. Most of the time you'll be playing it, you'll be playing one copy. Like something like Super Rod, where you'll be playing. I guess it depends on the deck, but Super Rod could be a 1 of, a 2 of, a 3 of, maybe even a 4 of in certain decks. But Palpad is 1, maybe 2 copies in a deck. Then we have Giratina VSTAR. I'm not really going to talk about these too much. Giratina VSTAR is definitely a solid Pokemon. It's not a great attacker right now. On its own, it's like decent within Regidraco VSTAR. Definitely pretty good in Regidraco VSTAR. But it's rotating soon, and certainly it's not at its highest level of glory right now. Well, then you have Comfy and Cramorant and Sableye, and these are the Lost Zone cards, as well as Colossus Experiment. And I mentioned Lost Vacuum, which is not in this list. And then Barrage Gate as well. These are the Lost Zone package, allowing you to power up different Pokemon and do different things. Comfy is really good. Cramorant and Sableye are also very good. Colossus Experiment is very good. There's not too much to get into right now. Ultimately, it's just a deck that's been good for a while and is a cool deck, in my opinion. Some people don't like it, but definitely an interesting deck that is past its prime, but not a bad deck either. The best way to play Lost Zone, though, right now is with Pikachu EX. Lost Zone Box would presumably almost always be playing that. There are different Pokemon you really don't have access to. A lot of these, to like some of the most important Pokemon here, but Lost Zone is definitely a good deck. Then we have the next deck being, anything else here? You have Beach Court, you have Roxanne. Roxanne's a disruptive supporter. It's kind of like Iono. It's stronger than Iono, but it's only playable in like the last half, probably like third of the game, maybe is when you can play it. But it's definitely a decent supporter. But I think different people have different opinions, but definitely one getting 2 copies of it is pretty nice. Beach Court is a stadium helping out Basics Retreat. The main deck I know it in is this deck. It's weird. It was a very solid stadium, but we've seen the new Pokemon Latias EX, which kind of does this but better, but not a bad card to have at all. You do get 4 copies of Switch, which is nice. And I bumped my mic. And 4 copies of Switch card. So it's like Switch, and so that's fine. I mean, really, you'll only be playing that many copies in really this deck, but definitely a solid card to have. And also Jet Energy is it's Switch, but it's in energy, so that's fun. Then also you get as much basic energy as you want. I didn't say that, but you get all the basic energy. Then you have Hisuian Zoroark VSTAR. This is definitely not very good, and Dodrio also not great. There's a lot of stuff that really goes with this deck. It's unfortunately kind of bad but it's fun. I guess Double Turbo Energy, though, is a really great card. It's the best special energy card in the game by far, being two colorless energy, which is really, really, really good for certain attackers. It will be rotating, but it might be the most impactful card that's going to be rotating. I'm not sure. It's up there, but it's a really, really great card. It's comparable to the double color synergy card we saw before, which if you, for example, like are away from the game or getting back in, it's like that. You do 20 less damage, but it's an amazing card, and definitely one that getting 4 copies is awesome. The rest of these cards are not great. The Hisuian Zoroark VSTAR deck is not a completely terrible deck by any means. I don't know if this is how you play it. You could also play it with the new Stadium card, or the moderately new Stadium card, Area 0 Underdepths. It's not great and not super commonly played, but it is kind of fun. Then we have Lugia VSTAR. Lugia VSTAR puts 2 Arceus into play. You got 4 copies here. This allows you to accelerate a bunch of special energies from your deck. Then you have, in terms of attackers, you have the Snorlax, which is okay. I think it's underrated, but it's not the strongest. We also see Barrel, which is like not played in Lugia essentially ever. You have this Luxray, which is actually a really interesting card. If you're losing as in down in prizes, you can play it down as a stage 2. But you can play it down straight like a basic. Then if you're losing, you can also use the special energy card Reversal Energy, which you can just attach. It's 1 special energy. They'll pay the attack cost of Luxray, which will then do a 180, I believe. Luxray is a pretty solid Pokemon to consider in different decks. Then you also have, in this deck, a bunch of different special energies. You have Mist Energy, which is a pretty versatile energy that is going to allow you to be immune to effects of attacks, not damage, but the other stuff, which can be really huge or can be kind of useless. And Gift Energy is okay, but it will be rotating. It isn't like the most... It's not the best special energy. It's decent. Then Therapeutic Energy is bad. It's good on Snorlax, and that's it, as far as I'm aware. You can play it with that like weird Wigglytuff that accelerates literally only Therapeutic Energy. Regardless, you also have Explorer's Guidance, also Boss's Orders. I didn't say this in Professor Tur's scenario. Have different like sub names, but they're all the same card. But Explorer's Guidance here says that you look at the top 6 cards of your deck, you discard 4 of them, put the other 2 into your hand. This is good in specifically the deck called Ancient Box, which wants lots of ancient cards in your disco pile, and it's an ancient card, so that's pretty cool. Basically goes as a Stadium, which is okay. Definitely not a terrible one to have. It's not great. I mean, it's played in this deck, but it's not super strong. It's random, which is a bit of an issue. Then you have the Mewtwo EX Zadu deck. It plays a 1/1 Arceus VSTAR line. Arceus VSTAR is not a terrible Pokemon, but it's not a great Pokemon. Right now, you also have Enamorous V, which is a weird card. it's kind of weird. This deck's just it's kind of weird, not great. But Mewtwo EX Zadu, definitely not one I'd recommend you play. I believe it's the weakest. Yeah, it's almost definitely the weakest of these decks, but if you're playing at 2, its highest level. But Mewtwo EX did end up seeing some play with Miraidon, but don't do that. Then Zadu's kind of a fun line, but nothing super amazing. You have Arazu. Yeah, Penny. Penny's a good card. It's like Professor Tur's scenario. You return a Pokemon from your hand or from in play into your hand, but it needs to be a basic. But you keep the attached cards, which is kind of cool. Good with a few things. You got Moonlit Hill, which is I guess good with Gardevoir EX, and you have Earthen Vessel. Earthen Vessel is honestly like not the highest tier item, but like right below that as well. This is really great. You discard a card from your hand, search for 2 basic energies. Can be different types, can be the same type. It's a very, very useful, versatile item card that we need to see how good it ends up being in the future, but it's a card that interacts really well with a lot of different cards. Gholdengo EX, I don't know, there's just a bunch. It's very, very, very good. And then EXP Share and Rescue Board, 2 great tools. EXP Share is like not that played, but it's decent, preserving your energies on the board. Then Rescue Board reduces the retreat cost of the Pokemon it's attached to by 1, and these are both tools. And Rescue Board almost acts like a switch card, except it's a tool. I mentioned Arven earlier. Rescue Board with Arven is a really great option because you want to be able to get good value out of the tool. That's the thing that you might struggle to do throughout the course of the game. So Rescue Board it's a very, very solid tool. I think it's actually pretty underrated. I think it's good, and I think a lot of other people think it's good, but I think it's very, very good. Then we have the last deck here, which is the Roaring Moon or Roaring Moon EX deck. Roaring Moon, I mentioned Ancient Box earlier. Ancient Box isn't actually Ancient Box, it's just Roaring Moon. That's the main attacker. Then you put in a bunch of different ancient Pokemon, and ultimately you don't have those. You have a few, but not really all the ones that you need. But with Roaring Moon, you just go ahead and attack with that, and you have Roaring Moon EX as well. Roaring Moon EX is a really cool card. Its first attack can just instantly knock anything out. That isn't effective in an attack, so Mist Energy will stop that, but you instantly knock out your opponent's attack. If you do 200 to yourself, though, then you have Calamity Storm, which is able to do 220 if there's a stadium in play. And you do play Pokestop, which is a stadium that, as part of your engine, really the main part of your engine, getting items from the top of your deck, discarding the other cards. So that's pretty strong. You get 3 copies, but definitely a very, very solid stadium. Probably the best in the game right now, unless I'm forgetting one. Aerosio Under Depths is also pretty good. And then you have Brute Bonnet, which is a really fun card paired with Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, which Ancient Booster Energy Capsule on its own right doesn't do that much. It's okay, but not that good. But then you have Brute Bonnet with the Toolon, which allows you to poison both actives. This is cool with the deck called Cloth Terrapagos EX. It's a pretty weird deck. It's a hot deck right now, or at least was, and it's pretty fun. Definitely a cool deck. Will not be so good with rotation. It hasn't been that good for that long either, but it's fun. Then you have Squawkabilly EX. Squawkabilly EX is actually like really good. One of the best basics in the game right now, allowing you to discard your hand, draw 6 on the first turn of the game, your first turn of the game. With its ability, it has really low HP, but it's a card that's really great for drawing cards. It just draws so much so quickly. So it's a great card. It's a key part of Turbo decks. You have Squawkabilly EX, Radiant Greninja, not in this list, but I'm reading Hisuian Zoroark, I guess, would also be played with Brute Bonnet, increasing poison stuff. But you can play Radiant Greninja, Squawkabilly EX, Trekking Shoes, which is an item that helps you get through your deck a little faster and get some of the cards you want, and then Pokestop as well. You pair these all together and go for a very fast-paced deck. You also get 4 copies of Professor Saw's Vitality, which I mentioned earlier, and 4 copies of Explorer's Guidance. Both really great for Ancient Box decks. But then you have Professor Saw's Vitality, which is great for any Ancient Pokemon, like the Roaring Moon EX, the Baby Roaring Moon, the Gouging Fire EX. Gouging Fire EX won't be so great post-rotation, but whatever. Then you have Walking Wake EX, I guess. I don't know. That one's not great, but there's a good few. I'm sure I'm forgetting. Raging Bull EX. Raging Bull EX is definitely very good. And then there's also Dark Patch to get energies in play. You don't... this will be rotating, but it's a good card. Then you have the last card that's important here, I guess, would be... I've lost it. Where is it? Oh, you get 4 Earthen Vessel. So that's kind of cool. But regardless, there are a lot of really good cards. As I said, there are those staple supporter cards and staple item cards, which we saw at the beginning, and in really a lot of these decks. There are a few cards that you don't have that you might want, which would be like Rotom, pre-rotation, Rotom V, Luminion V, and then, of course, Forest Seal Stone, the best tool card we've seen in like 5 years or something, because it is like an item, which is super weird. I mean, items are, it's a big mess, but regardless, you have a lot of really, really good cards in these starter decks, and you need to log in now before rotation happens. You should 100% log into Pokemon TCG Live if you haven't, to just get these. I mean, you had a year to do it. So it's something really useful. So then you can also get the cards from the new starter decks. But overall, I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.